Hello and welcome to Miniatures Rundown. I'm Josh.
I'm Mitchell.
And I'm Cody.
And today we're talking about the new Grand Tournament Arks of Omen book for Warhammer 40,000. But not the whole thing. Specifically today we're going to talk about detachments. Or rather, detachment.
Yeah.
Because there is only one now.
Well,
Sometimes two.
sometimes two. Occasionally two.
There is at least only one.
Yes.
Which I guess has always been true. Look, there's one really big one that you have to take, all right?
Yes.
The required detachment.
All right, so who wants to talk about that? Who wants to lay it down?
So this is definitely the biggest change in here, and it's here. We're talking real talk. We think they're going to get rid of detachments soon. This is basically leading to that. This is one detachment for everything that you could possibly need, except for allies.
Yeah.
If you don't have an ally, you get one detachment, and it fills in everything. You can have, instead of having troops, you can have fast attack elites, or heavy support, or, hang on, I have to check, or Lord of War.
Lord of War.
So you can just have an HQ and 3 Lords of War if you wanted to be a menace.
So you can actually take a Lord of War instead of an HQ sometimes too.
Oh, really? I didn't see that.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
So let's get into it. So up on the screen here.
Pretty much just knights.
Yeah. Up here is the picture of the actual detachment. Thank you, Warhammer community, for releasing this ahead of
For
time.
showing the whole thing, which is great.
So we all knew this was coming. And what this is basically you have to have one HQ, period. Now, this doesn't cost any command points anymore. There's
Right.
no command point refund.
Right.
But like last chapter approved,
yeah.
You only start with 6 command points in match play now, not the 12 in the core book. You have to have an HQ, and then you basically pick 3 of any one thing. So either
Yes,
3
any one
elites,
type.
3 troops, 3 fast attacks, 3 heavy supports, or 3 Lords of War. Once you hit those minimum 3 of that one thing, you can then unlock the rest of the chart, which is in addition to, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not just that. So if you use up your 3 heavy support slots, you then unlock 3 more.
Which is just nuts in and of itself.
6 heavy support slots is by itself bonkers.
Yeah.
In what possible universe is anyone ever going to bring 3 fortifications, I ask?
0 possible universe.
Well, there is some new fortifications coming out, so maybe?
Yeah, the
Probably not.
the Aegis defense line for Ashen
Yeah.
Tarm is getting a reboot.
And the
I hope
Tau
it's
still
good.
have them that haven't been used in
Every
years.
single current one is terrible.
Yes.
every one of them.
Yeah, they're all bad.
They're
and
very cool looking terrain.
That's
Yeah.
that's what they should be used as, is just terrain. And partially also because the terrain placement rules are just bonkers punishing, right? But anyway, there is also an additional slot for 3 more character unit only elites. So, and of course the usual dedicated transport
Yeah,
slot.
transport's 1 per infantry unit taken.
Which is pretty, that's how it's
Yeah, that's
always
standard
been.
for, I
Yeah.
think, all detachments.
So functionally, this removes minimums.
Yeah.
Like you
You
just
have,
need
you have to have a minimum 3 of something.
which is like, oh yeah, you have to have models to play the army.
Yeah.
Big surprise.
Right.
You can't like take 2 elites, 2 fast attack, and 2 heavy supports, and 1 troops. You have to take 3 of something.
Because it does say or.
Yep.
So it does not say and.
Now, let's be real, pretty much every list is going to do that anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's cool. So it's like opening it up to just, I mean, it's opening it up to like spamming stuff, which is but like,
a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because 40K did not drop the rule of 3.
Right.
Which, for those
Correct.
unfamiliar, you cannot have more than 3 of the same data slate. Data sheet. Sorry,
sheet.
in your army. Barring, I think there's some very specific
Troops, dedicated
exceptions.
transports, and there's some that are even less than 3.
Yeah.
flyers. Flyers are 2.
Flyers
are
are
2.
max 2.
Although,
Which is also represented here because it's 0 to 2 flyers. You can't even take 3 flyers.
yes.
Yes.
And flyers is not one of the options for the minimums
Right.
to unlock.
Good.
Yes.
Well, I mean, this tournament pack is just, we hate flyers.
Yeah.
Flyers
Oh
go
yeah.
home.
Yeah, you felt that.
So basically what we're saying is this is GW testing the waters for what if we just didn't have.
Yeah, nixing detachments, what did they used to be called? Neither of you played back then.
did
They
not.
used to be called, yeah, I don't remember. So yeah, we think it is them just, this is the transition from what we had to eventually being no detachments, eventually being either this is the detachment, this is the way you play, or like no minimums. well, in which we have no idea what's going to happen.
Or at least less restricted minimums. Because
Yes.
there are still minimums. You do
Yeah.
have to pick one theme and stick to it.
Yeah. The other interesting thing is, as we mentioned, if you have no allies, you cannot take a second detachment. This
No.
is the only detachment you get. You can only have 4 HQs in a sentence, unless you take allies. Which, again, this is very open, but some people want to HQ spam. And, I was seeing lists that were taking 6 HQs, barring, faction benefits, because I've been messing with a lot of demon lists, and demon lists are like, for each greater demon you take, you can take a herald without using up a detachment slot. So barring those, which I think those will be stronger in this book.
Yeah, so I guess let's get into how does this affect the armies that we know about, that we like to play?
Right.
Because, so basically, all bets are off. You can bring up to 6 of everything except flyers, basically. More troops, even more elites, because up to 9 elites. If
Up to 9 elites as long as 3 are characters. And those characters are like Primaris, Ancients,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Keller Morph,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing.
Slime Arbo, I guess.
Slice Elite?
Slice
I
Elite.
thought he was HQ.
Nope, no. Sly doesn't, because Sly cannot give orders. He can't be your warlord.
I mean, fair.
And only 4 elites, 4 HQs in total.
Yeah,
Because
four-
you only-
4 HQs in
Your
total.
1 mandatory and then your 3 additionals. So how does this affect what you're playing?
So interestingly, it's I was trying to be very not troop centric, but every time I make a list, even with Arks of Omen, I'm finding myself adding troops anyway, because that's how you get OBSEC.
Yes.
Most of the time, not all the time. But I would usually do 2 of something and then a third of something. For example, Necrons. I would take 2 units of Wraiths and a unit of Scarabs anyway. So it doesn't really change anything there, and it's just makes it so that I don't have to take 3 troops if I don't want to spend command points and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
The thing that I like is that I don't have to take a separate detachment for a Lord of War, aka Monolith or Baneblade or whatever.
Yeah. This is the return of the Lords of War, right?
Yeah.
Because Lords of the War, in addition to very often not being worth their points,
Yeah.
were always expensive to take command point wise.
Yeah, and
Yes.
they had to buff them twice there,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, don't get me wrong, the Lords were cool. But
And this very often also applied to things like Primarchs.
Yeah.
Because they were so expensive to take command point wise, in addition to being expensive to take point wise, that a lot of the time, unless they were incredibly good, Mortarian basically. Even
the
then-
Silent King too.
Silent King, yeah.
Silent King was in every Necron list.
But even then, you didn't see them. You didn't see Mortarian a lot for a lot of
Yeah.
later in Death
Right.
Guard. This makes playing them a lot easier, which is good, I guess. And this kind of makes me feel like this is the edition is ending. Throw something out at the wall and see what happens.
Yeah, I think this is more of a planned thing.
Planned thing.
I think, like I said, I think this is the transition into 10th.
Okay.
Of 10th being more lax on your list building, because, I mean, we play Age of Sigmar. Sorry, Cody. We play Age of Sigmar, and Age of Sigmar
A black bar
is-
appears here for the duration of the conversation.
is pretty open. You
Yes.
take a hero, 3 battle line, which can change depending on your subfaction, and you have maximums, and that's it.
And very often those battle line can be monsters.
Yeah.
Or cavalry, or very much depends. Almost every faction that is released now has a monster mash subfaction that is designed to let you take big things to the battle line.
Right. So I think they're leaning more towards that with 40k, and that's what 10th edition is going to lean towards.
We'll come to Cody's armies in a second because I don't want to leave him out of that. But another thing that I think heralds that is that we are seeing increasingly free war gear for everybody. They're going, screw the atomization. We're done with this whole crap. You get the unit, you get everything in it, and most of the time the only thing that costs is very specific upgrades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Death Core Creed and med pack for Imperial Guard, that costs 5 points because
Yeah.
it's worth a lot. But in general, Space Marines, I think, are probably the ones who just got hit with, and by that I mean juiced with.
Yes. They got hit with the buff bat.
Yeah, it's a candy cane or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was looking at a Space Wolves list, and so it turns out, I said this to you, but it turns out I no longer have 2,000 points in Space Wolves.
Everything dropped
because
like a
everything
rock.
went down and all of my upgrades got reduced.
Yeah.
So I went to go take a unit of Wolfguard Terminators, and they all got way cheaper. And well, I think the Terminators went up in points, but then all their upgrades became free except for like Thunderhammers, and that's like it.
Yeah, and like Thunderhammers and Storm Shields are.
Storm Shields are free, which is dumb.
Put a Cyclone Missile Launcher on all of them now. Might as well. Why not? It's free.
Anything you put them on, yeah. So Space Marines had the most customization, and they are definitely benefiting the most from this. I'm seeing people like, I had a list that was 3,400 points, and now it's 2,000.
That might be a slight exaggeration. Well, speaking of Space Marines, you play Space Marines.
Yeah.
How is this changing how you're playing Space Marines in Arks of Omen?
I mean, benefiting from all the stuff that Space Marines across the board get, it's
in
pretty
addition
great.
to all the other
But
buffs.
as far as like Blood Angels specific units, like it's not nerfing them, but they're not seeing the benefits nearly as much as the rest of Space Marines, because a Blood Angels list is very Blood Angels only units like Sanguinary Guard, Death Company, stuff like that, and like they had mild point increases to kind of make up for it at the same time. Like Death Company with Thunderhammers, like Death Company itself went up a couple points, but Thunderhammers are free now, so it's kind of even across the board. It's still really cool because like a lot of my lists, I have some stuff like Inceptors, free Plasma Inceptors. That's nuts. So my list definitely dropped, but Blood Angels weren't nearly as affected by this as a lot of the other ones. So they're kind of a special scenario though, because they have so many of their own models. Like it's like a suffering from success moment.
Yeah.
We have too much special stuff, so we didn't get as good of a deal, but we already had special stuff. So
I think a couple things just in general that are going to really benefit from this detachment are, like we said, Lords of War. Anybody that can make non-troops OPSEC. So, like, there's a Necron subfaction that does it. There's, like, there's Space Marines that can give it to everybody around them. There's, like, Dark Angels can give it to their Terminators, which is stupid. So anybody that can do that, you just don't have to take troops anymore. Yeah. Why bother?
Yeah, I mean, from the detachment aspect, Blood Angels, they got some good benefits, like a Sanguinary Ancient that's on a lot of lists. That doesn't take up an elite slot anymore, and it's a very elite heavy army, so that just leaves a slot open for something else that you can possibly take. So like they benefit from the detachment, not so much from the free war gear. And then I also play Tau, a free. What's their big guy? Storm Surge.
Well, free is
Well, free is free CP.
Command points.
Yes, yeah. So I think it's kind of a both like transitioning into 10th edition for sure. I agree with that, but also at the same time, like before Nephilim, it was 12 CP for a 2,000 point game, right? And they cut it in half, and everybody freaked out. Like going back to Blood Angels, like my current Blood Angels list in Nephilim had 1 CP to start the game.
Oh my god.
And that's
one.
CP in general got a lot more famine.
Yeah.
So Nephilim definitely like super cut CP, and one of the reasons I didn't play that is because I thought that was a little ridiculous.
Yes.
But they're making more things free with this book, command point wise, which I think helps it like kind of go back a little bit to the way it was.
And it's interesting for me, being only starting with, I mean, I've played 2 Nephilim games and now I'm playing Arks of Omen. The CP felt right because I'm used to Age of Sigmar, where
Right.
CP is pretty darn limited.
Yeah, you start with like 2 or 3 and get 1 every turn.
And there's really powerful command abilities in 40k. So to me, the idea of playing against somebody who had 12 CP to spend would be bonkers. So for me, starting with like 6 seems really cool. And I'm thinking starting with 3 or 4 after spending some points on relics, warlord traits is actually quite fine. That's normal to me.
Right.
So speaking of, I guess I'll go to me now. My army, my Imperial Guard. This is like got Imperial Guard tank list written all over.
Oh yeah.
Because we've gone from 3 heavy support slots, which is 9 Luminosas, by the way, for those counting, to a possible of 6 heavy support slots, which is 18 Luminosas for those of you counting.
Can't take 18 Lehman
You can't take 18 because you are still limited to the rule of 3.
You can take 9 Layman Russes, and 3 Roboborns.
You don't have the points for that.
I don't care.
Well, not a 2,000 point list anyway.
Yeah, not 2,000.
But you can take a lot of tanks now. And Imperial Guard are an army that has a regimental faction they can pick to give all their armored stuff OBSEC.
That's nice.
Or if you don't want to pick the regiment, you can use, there's a mechanized order to give armored stuff OBSEC.
Oh, wow.
So it is now and there's even an HQ that is a tank commander. You could have 4 of those. And they're very good. So, yeah, this is absolutely like if I wanted to play just tanks. Just nothing but tanks.
Yeah, we were talking about this. It's the only way I would play Guard is if my entire army was tanks.
Well, this is the time, Mitchell.
Okay, so I'm going to pick up Guard
Now is the hour.
Okay, cool. There is something that should be mentioned that we haven't mentioned yet.
Yes.
There is a new generic stratagem. Because with the introduction of Nephilim, there was one for a Warlord trait, one for a Relic, and then, your faction had, take an extra Relic, take an extra Warlord trait. Because the Relics and Warlord traits aren't free anymore, your first one. The new one that they added is Heroic Support, which means you could spend a command point, and something that you can normally only take 1 of, you can now take 2 of.
Yes,
and
it's interesting.
Yeah, that was, so the main one is for Space Marines, it's, you could normally only take 1 captain, but you can spend a command point to be able to take 2 captains. Or for, what was the other one I was thinking of?
Votan, you can only run 1 cowl. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I would have to read if that specifies still for that, so that might be a big effect for it.
All the Chaos can only take 1 Demon Prince per detachment, but with this you can take 2 Demon Princes. And then, again, this is leaning towards the fact that you can only have 1 detachment. So, if you really want to take that second Demon Prince, you can still spend a point for it.
Which essentially is what you would do by paying for another detachment anyway.
Yeah.
So it's kind of giving you the other benefits of that second detachment. The only thing you were really taking that detachment for. It's a cake and eat it too thing.
Yeah, which is not bad.
This detachment and this update, for lack of a better term to put it in game terms, is really is play with the toys you bought from us.
Yeah.
Because
Which I'm happy with.
Which is, it was an interesting, for me as an outsider, the reaction to Nephilim was like, why are you selling all these $140 huge kits if I can't take them easily? And there still is some of that, for Imperial Guard, the Baneblade is by far the worst of the options for armor, because the little Leman Russ just is the little tank that could.
I still want a Baneblade.
I'm still buying one.
Yeah, obviously.
I am a sucker for a Baneblade.
Yes, you are a sucker.
I'm just deep. And now, so that's the other thing I guess let's talk about, reserves. Because this kind of comes into this.
Yes.
Now you can put anything in the reserves. End of story. Okay.
Yeah. Because, again, they're making stuff more free, and it was for every 10 power level,
Yep.
you had to spend a command point to put it in reserves, and now it's just
Rounding up too.
yeah. And now it's just just do it.
So if you want to, play, live out your Dawn of War fantasies and shout Baneblade it after putting a Baneblade into reserves, that would have cost you 3 command points.
Yeah.
Now I can just do that for free.
Yeah. That actually does change one of the lists I was doing, which was Necrons all in the Dimensional Sanctum, yeah. Because how their transports work, except for the Ghost Ark, all their transports, you have to put your guys in reserves, and then they teleport onto the board next to your Monolith or your Night Scythe. So you had to spend the points to put them in your transports, which was annoying.
Yes.
But not anymore.
I mean, you still can't null deploy.
No.
You had to put half your army on this.
Yeah, which is fine. But it was
Which is how it should be.
being able to teleport in a Monolith and then teleport in a unit right next to the Monolith is cool.
And in general, this lets you do things like hide very valuable pieces off the board. Like if I wanted to bring my Baneblade, but I'm fighting Tau, and I'm worried that it's going to get storm surged off the board if I don't win a priority. And because you can't hide those Titanic units behind buildings.
Nope.
They just get shot. And depending on the unit, some of them are not going to survive that. Nowadays, you can put it in reserve and not bring it in until you are ready to use it. And with something like a Baneblade or a Storm Surge or an Imperial Knight, it has big guns. So when you bring it in, you're going to be able to drop it.
Yeah.
And get
shoot everything
at least
with it.
a round of firepower out of it before it gets clapbacked.
Yeah.
Which is both good and bad.
Yes.
Because now you do enter this kind of game of reserved chicken.
It's oh, your Baneblade's out, but my Imperial Knights...
I've got my, you've got your Knight out, and I've got my Baneblade out. And it's whoever drops it first is going to get one round, but I want to use my Shadow Sword and its Volcano Cannon to kill your Knight, but I can't do that because your Knight's are on the table.
Yeah.
Right.
And if I won priority, I have to go before you. Do I leave my Baneblade off for 3 rounds until round 3?
Yeah, because after round 3 it's destroyed, right?
Yeah,
Wow.
and bring it in then, and then I've paid for a Baneblade that isn't on the board for 2 turns.
Yeah, 2 out of the 5 turns.
Yeah.
and can't move for 4 of it for.
Yeah,
3
for
of
an
them.
extra one, yeah.
That's not great.
No,
So we'll see how that goes, because that could be frustrating for some people.
that's true.
Depending on faction and depending on options. But it does, it is nice, I guess,
Yeah.
to have the ability to reduce that alpha strike, because it is an ongoing concern
Right.
in 40k is the dreaded alpha strike. It's something they're always trying to dial back. It gets
Well-
worse. It gets worse as the edition goes on.
Uh-huh.
This has happened for 20 years, right?
It's true.
It gets more and more damage, goes up, and then they go reset, and it goes up. This feels like a little bump. Like they're kind of like, oh god.
We're like most of the way there, and they're like,
Someone's holding the dial back so it doesn't go up. And it's like, oh, you can hide your knight. You can
Yeah.
hide your knight. You can hide your knight.
without spending 3 command points.
Right. So speaking of reserves, aircraft. Because we mentioned aircraft.
Yeah.
GW took all of our aircraft and put them in a box and put them in the bin. They just shredded them.
No, I thought you were going to say put them in a box and put them in another box and then ship them to yourselves and
Smash it.
smash it with a hammer.
Put them in the corner.
Yeah, pretty much, because aircraft now cannot start on the board.
Right.
They must start in reserve. They come in from reserve at the beginning or at the end of your movement phase in round 2. They don't get to move in round 2.
Nope.
So you can't bring your aircraft in until round 3. And as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, pretty much all aircraft in 40k, with a few exceptions, are either one of 2 things. Bombing aircraft, which are designed to fly over enemy models and do mortal wounds,
Okay.
Yes.
or aircraft that are transport aircraft.
There are some exceptions.
There are
but
some
mostly
attack
less.
aircraft too,
Yeah.
but those are rarer.
I think orcs have a lot of that.
I think orcs might be the exception,
Well, like
the main competitive exception.
that's true. Because I was going to say the Stormfang gunship
Yes.
in Space Wolves, but you said competitive, and then I said never mind. And it also does have a transport. It only transports 6 models, though.
Okay, so this change absolutely neuters 2 of those 3.
Yeah.
Because if you start your models in that aircraft transport, that aircraft is not moving to drop them until turn 3.
That's true. Which really sucks.
Yes, and that's if it doesn't get shot down
Yeah.
turn 2.
You bring it out on turn 2, and then it goes.
Yeah, and if it's a bomber aircraft, it's not dropping any mortal wound bombs.
Yeah, over when you fly over anything, which
Until
I know
turn 3.
I know orcs do have that where they have the blast a bomb jet
Yes.
or whatever the heck it's called. So even they suffer from it a little bit.
Yeah,
It's basically just a cleanup crew at that point.
Yeah.
yeah, you're not alpha striking your opponent's army or anything like that, which is what they were kind of used for.
Yeah.
I get the feeling that that's what this is meant to address. Is no, stop this whole mortal wound bombing crap on turn 1. You got to call it in.
Well, then you have to stop making rules for that.
That would be the same man's thing, but that takes a lot more effort than one of these.
That's true.
And they do it. It's just every 6 months.
You are only legally allowed to change rules every time there's a new tome. You can't just release free documents that
That's
fix things. Mitchell.
Not even true.
Do you play the same game?
They released the balanced data slate. They are changing rules in between.
Not
Yeah.
that big, though. Not we
Pretty big.
removed the idea of mortal wound bombing from every aircraft that has it.
You know, that's fine. That's
To be fair, I mean, we joke about that, but Armor of Contempt's gone. So they are not the idea of averse to the idea of taking a concept out behind the shed and shooting it.
Yeah. Like, well, this is a mistake. Sorry, guys.
You know what? We tried something. It didn't work. What if we just jettisoned it completely from everyone who's not Votan?
Yeah.
Because it's void armor.
Anyway,
It's just long silence about whatever.
fade to black. Comes back.
Kevin's face comes up smiling.
So is that all we think about the Arks of Omen detachment itself?
Yeah, because the other thing we want to talk about, Cody, do you have anything else to say on it?
I mean, that's pretty much everything rounded up. It's just simpler, more command points to go around, play with your toys.
Easier to play with the hugely expensive model kits you
But
bought.
like going back on what you said, like the Age of Sigmar, like used to only kind of playing with 1 or 2. Like that's fair. I agree with that. But like when I have 1 CP and my opponent who's Ultramarines with Marnius Calgar and has like 8 at the beginning of the game,
That's-
like
and then he gets to use them to like
it's balancing
stack these stratagems
Yeah,
that
'cause-
just wipe you off the board.
because they get some of the same stratagems as I do. So like yeah, it's balancing. Like
And I think that's what this was really meant to address.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about it.
yeah, exactly. But other than that, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I got on that.
So the other thing we wanted to talk about today, because it is technically kind of a detachment rule, is allies, or technically battle brothers.
Yes.
Battle Brothers.
Great picture there of an Imperial Guard model that is not in existence. You can't buy that. That's just concept art.
It is really cool.
It is, but I wish you could.
It looks like a nomad.
It does, and I think that's
I
what,
thought it was.
I'm assuming they kind of intention saying you should kit bash Nomad.
Nomad guard.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen people do it for to learn.
That's how they have to advertise Necromunda, apparently. Just subconsciously. Play Necromunda as you read this cool codex.
Are there any
Or
pictures in here of the actual
chapter
models? No,
approved.
there aren't. Okay. So Battle Brothers is basically the ally system. And there was some talk when this was first teased. It was like, oh god, soup is back.
Yeah.
The soup, head all down to the soup kitchen. I'm bringing my sisters with my guard, with my Space Marines, and we're all going to get all our rules, and we're going to steamroll again.
Yeah.
We're back to 8th edition. That did not happen.
That is not the case.
Thank God for that. Because
Yes.
I was not playing during those times, but the weeping and gnashing of teeth was a big reason why I didn't start playing during those times. Because, like, wow, people don't seem to be having fun with this game.
You play to have fun.
The person with the most money wins more.
I hate both of you. So, basically, this is the rules for allies. And if your Arks of Omen detachment is an Imperium detachment, you can include one of the following in an allied detachment. Agents of the Imperium, Auxiliary Support or Patrol, Imperial Knight Super Heavy Auxiliary, which is with one free blade, or a Votan Patrol detachment.
Yeah.
which is
Interesting.
weird.
Yeah, so let's talk about the ones that aren't weird. Agents of the Imperium basically is most Imperium models have Agents of the Imperium rules, right?
Ish, yeah.
Kind of.
Agents of the Imperium is mostly the one-off guys, like
Yeah.
the
That's what I meant to say. Sorry, breachers,
breachers,
Inquisitors.
inquisitors,
rogue traders.
yeah, the rogue traders. I forgot about them, and then the assassins from the assassinarium.
Yes.
So that's like fine.
Not a lot.
Yeah,
Adeptus Arbitus, apparently, who aren't out yet. but
yeah,
will
Soon, TM.
be. Yeah.
have it.
Seen it at Adepticon.
Yeah,
So that's not weird.
Yeah.
And not particularly powerful.
not really.
Then-
Like you could take like a sniper.
I'll probably bring some breachers because it's fun. That's about it.
Yeah,
Imperial Knights Super Heavy Auxiliary Detachment with a free blade unit. Now that's more fun.
yeah,
Because you can bring a free blade unit without destroying your own army rules. Right? Am I right on that one?
I believe so.
Which is really, really fun. Because we're back to being able to ally in a single knight that isn't getting its own awesome rules because they're free blades, which don't have the same, like,
yeah.
Night
honors
houses and
the
stuff,
houses
yeah.
that make, the things that make armatures really good. They don't get those. But you can bring Canis Rex or a unit of free blade armatures. And that's fun. It's kind of what knights were originally advertised
Yeah, they were
as.
supposed to be allies, and they're like, here's a whole book for all of them. Just take it as a faction.
And then 8 was too powerful with soup, so they brought all soup back.
Yeah.
And that kind of destroyed that.
Again, like they've had to buff taking super heavies twice now, and it still wasn't enough. So they're like,
So I'm excited about that one because I want to put some of my knights on the table with my Imperial Guard.
oh, and it should be mentioned that all of these Battle Brothers also cost 0 command points.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. This is another detachment. This is the only way you get a second detachment.
Yeah.
And it has to be a patrol.
And then,
Well, it depends because like that one said auxiliary or patrol. The
Agents
super
of the
heavy
Imperium
auxiliary.
is- Yeah.
Oh,
Votan
yeah,
has to be
yeah.
patrol.
Except for knights.
So then let's talk about the weird one, Votan.
Yeah, which are explicitly Xenos.
I mean, this has been memed to death on the internet by the
Yes.
time this video is out.
Probably.
Like, Votan are just rolling up to the Adeptus Mechanics and going, "Yo, sup?" Oh no, that's not a robot.
That's not a
That's not an AI.
Totally a real mustache.
So yeah, I don't know why they decided to make Votan an Imperium ally, but
For every Imperium.
all Imperium.
But Votan don't let you keep your army rules.
No. Well, is it Free Blade that lets you keep army rules?
Yes.
Okay.
Or Agents of the Imperium.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: is the rest of these also don't?
Yes.
As far as I know.
Yeah, that's
So it's not just Imperium and Votan. It is everybody else also says you don't get to keep your army rules. I think the exception being demons.
I believe Harlequins can go into Aesir and Drukhari.
Okay.
And Tempestus Scions can go into Asher Militarum.
Okay. Well, then I might be wrong.
Because they have the Imperium.
Right.
They still Tempestus Scions still have the Asher Militarum keyword.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah,
and
I
like
think it's
Gene
like-
Stealers. No, maybe you are right.
Gene Stealers, Brood Brothers can go in and they don't ruin it because they have the Gene Stealers keyword.
Yeah. So the thing that's ruining it is the fact that it's the Votan versus the Imperium keyword.
Yeah,
That's what's ruining it.
Yeah, never mind. Then that is the only
Because
one.
Dreadblade Chaos Knights can go into Chaos. All of these.
So all of the there's a thing in Demons that as long as it's not 25% of your list,
Yeah.
you still get all your things.
Yeah.
So no. Never
So
mind.
yeah, that's the weird part because the cynical answer is that GW wants to sell more dwarfs, right? Like we'll make Votan allowable by everybody. Votan were already really overpowered, so we're just saying buy more Votan, but they're not.
Right. It still screws you if you take them.
It screws you terribly because you
Yes.
lose all. Space Marines forget how to do their doctrines. It's
Yeah, because like that's one of the
is that
most
a dwarf? What chapter am I in?
that's one of the most exciting parts about this is the combat doctrines for Space Marines. Like
Last
they get to
all the time
They
now?
get to stay in Devastator doctrine. Like so, like Iron Hands are just like super buff now
I
and stuff
forgot
like
about
that.
that.
Yeah, like so like. If you were Iron Hands and some Votan rolled up on your side, suddenly that's
Yeah,
that's a moot. Like
my
so, I don't.
guardsman throws down his banner and yells "Cadia Style." That's a dwarf. Never mind.
Yeah, like it's interesting,
down.
but I don't see anybody actually doing it.
Right, and also the Votan that you get don't get any of their crap.
Right.
Right.
No judgment tokens. The stuff that makes Votan actually good. I mean, they still hit kind of hard, but they don't hit that hard without judgment tokens.
Yeah.
They're
We should
just.
probably just like cross that one little line
It's
off.
so weird. And
It is very weird, and I want to know why, like, what they were thinking.
it's not good rules wise, and it's not good fluff wise. So it just.
Maybe they're gonna make an FAQ and be like, yeah, you still get your stuff.
They could do that. We have not gotten the FAQ yet.
That's true.
In which case, I will go back to cynicism on that.
Fair.
The rest of them are pretty much the same thing. Every faction gets to ally in kind of what you expect. Necrons get absolutely nothing.
Nope. Necrons get nothing. Tyranids get nothing.
Yep.
Tyranids can't even ally with Gene Stealer cults.
I mean, I guess that makes sense because by the time the Tyranids arrive, they just eat the Gene Stealer cults too.
It's true, but you used to be able to ally them because they were both Tyranid keyword.
Fair enough. So yeah, not anymore.
Chaos
Anyway.
Space Marines get the Chaos Demons of their choosing.
Or
like,
Dreadblade Knights.
Yeah.
Same, like my excitement for Imperial Knights also transfers to all
Yeah,
Chaos.
so-
Except for the four main, like Emperor's Children still has to be Slanesh. World
Yes.
Leaders has to
well,
be
yeah,
Khorne,
no,
blah,
like
blah, blah.
I didn't mean like of their like World Eaters. They chose Khorne, and then they
Oh,
get
that
to
is
take,
the- yes, that is the
yeah, like
choice.
their chosen god that they worship. That's what I meant. Not like World Eaters can just take any demon they want. Like
Slash
yeah,
rolls up with Khorne.
Yeah.
You know, it's no worse than Votan being with Admech.
That's true.
yeah.
And then there is, so if you are a Traitorous Astartes, so Chaos Space Marines, you can take a patrol detachment of demons as long as you are not Emperor's Children.
Yes.
Because Emperor's Children is specifically to Slanesh. So you can mix and match in that one.
Yes.
And then there is, if your Arks of Omen detachment is a Disciples of Be'lakor army, then you can take 2 patrols.
Because you use lots of demons, he does.
Yep.
I didn't read that.
You can include 1 Traitorous Astartes patrol detachment as allies. You can include 1 Chaos Knight Super Heavy as an ally detachment. Note this means that you can include 2 allied detachments, even though you can normally only include 1. So yeah, you can mix and match because Be'lakor is demons, and you can just add in some Space Marines, or and knights, not both, not or and.
Yes.
It's weird. Anyway,
So yeah, so this isn't really the feared return to soup,
right.
but it is a little adding a little spice to the soup, right? If you're, depending what faction you are. And there's some weirdness in there, like Guard and Space Marines being able to ally with each other is a long-standing thing, but that's not in here. Not
Yeah.
really. I mean, you can, but they both forget how to guard
Yeah.
and how to Space Marine.
Well,
How does Space Marine, he says.
no, you can't ally with Space Marines, can you?
No, you can't.
You said you can, but they lose their stuff.
Oh,
They can't even.
no, because so they don't have Imperium. No, you're right, because
Yeah,
they
they're
don't have
not
their
an
agent.
agent
Never,
of
never mind.
Yeah.
Yep. Because Imperium can ally with the stuff that
Yeah.
Space Marines can, but they can't ally with each other.
Yeah, that's so weird. But otherwise, I don't think it's going to have a big effect on competitive game.
No, I don't think so.
Because I don't think
it's game breaking.
knights are good enough that they're going to really be competitive parts of most armies.
Right.
Because most armies are going to have other things that they would rather bring instead.
Mhm.
But they will be good enough to be playable and fun,
Yes.
which I
Yeah.
like quite a lot.
Yeah.
That I'm actually really excited about.
Because I bought a Knights box and I want to run it with my Blood Angels.
I bought a Knights box and I want to run it with my Imperial Guard.
It's okay. I'll just kill it with my Thunderhammers.
You got to get there first.
I'm gonna keep in reserve now.
Look, if you get to my guard, you don't need Thunderhammers to kill them. You just kind of like poke them and they just fall over.
I need Thunderhammers to kill your armor.
Maybe not with my rolls.
We still haven't played each other. Maybe Friday.
Friday. Oh, definitely. I'm challenging you. Taking me down.
But yeah, someone who was not a fan of the Nephilim book.
A lot of people weren't.
I
Maybe that's why
am a fan
GW
of this
stopped
book.
selling it.
Yeah, they just canceled it entirely. I am a fan of this book.
Yeah. As somebody who's new to this, I am a fan of this book.
Awesome.
Because you know what? I was struggling, like a lot of new players, I was struggling with building an army, with using the detachment system.
Yeah.
And this just...
Oh yeah, it was super complicated to get new players into detachments. It's like, well, you have to take like a minimum of these things, and it
you want
costs
to take
points.
the biggest one you can that refunds your CP.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to have these units in this order. Da, 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 da.
Yeah, and now it's just like, take 3 of the same type, and then anything else you want.
Can do whatever you
Which is
like.
great because one of the biggest complaints about 9th edition is that it's like just overly complicated for no reason, and this takes a large chunk of that back, and I do like that because that was one of the first things I struggled with while list building and when I first started playing is like it's like, oh, I'll run this detachment, and then like, oh, you have too many elites, or oh, you have too many fast attacks, or you have too many of this, and like, yeah.
Interestingly, so the battalion detachment, which was the general one that you took previously, required 3 troops, but you could take up to 6 elites.
Yes.
So you actually don't gain any elites unless they're characters for this detachment.
Which I think a lot of players... I guess that depends on the army.
Depends.
That's a fair number.
I'm just saying that it's interesting that it's not like 3 plus 6.
No, it's not.
It's 3 plus 3, like everything else.
I think they realize that might be a little breaking.
Probably.
As it is, 9 elites in the field, 3 of them characters is still pretty good.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, that's when people started spending command points to run 2 different detachments so they could have more elites.
Yeah.
and-
Right.
yeah.
But now we don't have to.
Well, I don't have to.
Anyway.
Well, I think that's it from us. Because so overall, my verdict is I'm pretty pleased. I'm looking forward to actually playing with this on Friday.
Same.
Absolutely.
Hopefully, GW doesn't do the thing they did with Nephilim, which is, pretend this book stops existing in a month after it runs out of stock and they don't want to reprint it.
It just disappears from their website, even though we still have to use it for 4 more months.
Right. So, but that being said, you might want to get your copy now.
Yeah, and it's actually cheaper than Nephilim was.
Yes, my one big complaint coming from an Age of Sigmar player is that this is not spiral bound.
You can spiral land it,
I could.
You can
but,
go to-
But the Age of
almost said-
Sigmar one is just spiral bound.
and it's $50.
But it's spiral bound.
So if I went to Kinko's,
I don't want to go to Kinko's.
if I went to Kinko's
I'm not going
and
to Kinko's.
spiral bound mine, it would not cost $20.
Don't Kinko shit.
How much would it cost?
Like 8. That's a guess.
I'm gonna walk right over my Kinko shame joke.
Oh, I was ignoring it.
Any Kinko's employees in the comments?
If you work for Kinko's, let us know down below how much it would cost me to get this spiral bound.
But for real, what do you guys think about this? Are you a new player that makes this much makes it much easier for you to play? Are you an old player that hates it for some reason?
Is this soup the doom of 40k?
Yeah.
And take your bets when 10th edition drops in
Yeah.
summer, because it's going to drop.
Because it's going to drop.
We're going to see it at Adepticon, and it's going to drop. Will they even have detachments anymore? Will it be something new?
It's either going to be no detachments or it's going to be very similar to this. That's what I think.
I think
It's gonna
the
be
same
like-
thing. I
yeah.
think there might be like just one super detachment with a couple small auxiliaries and patrols.
They probably
allies,
won't even
stuff
call
like
it that anymore. It'll be like, here's the minimum you need to play.
Schmorschmallions.
They'll call it soup just to make everybody really mad.